Okay, here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed. One winner, 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast. Faster than fast, quicker than quick. I am lightning.
This episode is brought to you by SemiAnalysis, the leading research and consulting firm for AI infrastructure and buildouts. They work closely with many hyperscalers, AI labs, hedge funds, and semiconductor companies that you know and respect. From tracking the inference economics of model deployments to every data center and the supply chains for fabs, servers, electrical equipment, and more, SemiAnalysis is an expert on the topic. If you want to learn more or work in the industry, visit semianalysis.com to see their research and purchase their models. Thanks again to SemiAnalysis and founder Dylan Patel. The Decagon project builds founding go-to-market and engineering teams for venture-backed startups in San Francisco and New York. They built founding teams at Ramp, Cursor, Decagon, Rogo, and many more, while selectively investing through their flagship venture fund. With over a decade of experience and trusted partnerships across the top 15 US-based venture firms, the Decagon project is the premier talent partner for high-slope opportunities in early-stage technology. To learn more, get in touch, or explore roles across a curated list of breakout startups, visit decagonproject.com.
John Andrew, thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to have you both.
For context on the audience, I guess, we interviewed a close friend of yours, Joshua Browder. And through him, we're now interviewing you. You're the CEO of Wander.com, previously founded another company, and our Thiel Fellow. Maybe to start, if you want to go as early as you can imagine or as early as you'd like to go and paint a bit of a picture on your childhood and upbringing and maybe some core memories you have.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York, north of the city. Actually started my life in upstate New York on a farm. So grew up on a farm, pretty rural, ended up moving around a lot as a kid. I probably moved 8 or 9 times around like the New York area. Spent most of my time in Katona. Just fell in love with computers and software at a pretty young age. And the rest is kind of history. Started my first internet company when I was 13, 14, which did well, low 6 figures in revenue, and meant that I had a lot of shenanigans. You give a 13-year-old disposable income, and the rest is history. And then ended up enrolling in high school online. Had an absolute blast, exploring, traveling, doing all types of fun stuff. And during that time, started Coder and built Coder from ages 17, 18 through 23, all the way through growth stage, Series B, powering millions of software engineers at some of the world's largest companies. And stepped down, started Wander, and now here I am, 27. It's been a great journey.
You're old now.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just double click on Katona. You know, you're a kid. You've got your dad there. You got your sister. Do you turn to computers because you have nothing else to do? How does that come about?
Yeah. So my pop was a single dad. He raised my sister and I, and I would obviously always watch him working. I think I became really aware. I distinctly remember one evening, 4 or 5 in the morning, waking up, walking downstairs, and seeing him at his computer, working. And I think that's where it all clicked for me, that he was basically, literally self-sacrificing to provide for my sister and I. So I think it was I just want to work like dad. So it was all this curiosity about technology. I was always tinkering with RC cars and electronics and everything else, and then it went into okay, John Andrew, you have to be productive. And so I think that's what really led me into entrepreneurship.
To quote you a bit, you said the most remarkable man you could have ever imagined, just incredibly hardworking and gave everything to us. About your dad, are there any qualities that you really strive to pull from him, other than the fact that he worked hard? Was he extremely kind? Was he extremely blunt and straightforward? And maybe how does that transfer to how you eventually explored RC cars and other things?
Yeah, I mean, so my pop is a pretty remarkable man, and it's not just a bias of I love my dad. When you think about it, he sacrificed a ton to take care of my sister and I. He had his law firm and decided to focus more on me and my sister, downsize it, figure out how he could like organize everything so that he could be at home taking care of us. And like, I think that's one thing that's super admirable, right? Is like someone prioritizing their family over their career while still having an incredible career. But then also like when you're handed a kid like me, that just like makes it all a little bit more complicated. You know, it's like, I remember when I was building like one of my first companies, we got sued by Microsoft. And I was just like, I was using a pseudonym. And so I was like, okay, well, like there's all these lawyers. I know a lawyer, my dad, and like CC him in.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even like helping me through like that stuff, like, and of course, like as you build a company, there are so many different pieces. Or like when I said I'm not going to college, I'm going to move to Austin and start Coder. He's like, sick, let's do it. And like uprooted everything because he wanted to come and support.
Yeah.
So he just gets like a lot of awards. I mean, even I have like stories of when I was a little kid, I wanted more recess time. And so I effectively consolidated all of the children at my elementary school under this idea that the teachers weren't allowed to touch us. Which is a great insight. And so I basically staged a sit-in or sit-out or whatever you would describe it at the during recess. So we all just sat down. Like the bell went off for everyone to go inside, and no one went inside. And then it was like, you guys can't touch us. Like you can't force us to go inside. So in any event, we end up with this standoff. I'm like the intermediary between like the authority, aka like the principal. My pop gets called because it's like, your dad's coming, and I'm like, okay, like my dad's coming, like. So my pop rolls up in like his suit. He's coming from the city, and he's like, so what's the problem here? And they're like, your son has orchestrated a sit-in for more recess time. And he's like, okay, like, are they violent? And the principal's like, no. He's like, okay, good. He like walks over. He's like, so what are your demands? And there are so many stories like that of like my pop like serving as this like intermediary, this negotiator, like having my back as like a little kid, which was really awesome.
How old was the recess story?
Gosh, I must have been like, that would have been like second grade maybe. I had a lot of shenanigans.
Do tell the Microsoft one as well. I think we all want to hear that.
Yeah, so I had a bunch of different little online companies, from like little game server hosting companies to DDoS mitigation. But one of them, if you're familiar with the game Minecraft, I ran one of the websites that would list all of the top servers. And the way that website was monetized is that servers would pay us $5,000 a week to basically advertise their server at the top of the list. So that website was called funminecraftservers.com. And it had like 1 million monthly visitors. Like it was insanely like large scale. And so when Microsoft bought Mojang and bought the Minecraft trademark, they started going after everyone for all types of various reasons. And we had filed a trademark for funminecraftservers.com, which was conflicting with their trademark. So you ended up in this like trademark dispute effectively. So that's the Microsoft story, which when it started, it was just like 1 or 2 of their trademark lawyers. But then when I added in my pop, they thought I had secured third-party counsel. So then it was like 14 Microsoft attorneys, and then like this little kid and his dad. So.
And your dad was still supporting you. He was like, fuck Microsoft, I'm going to support John Andrew.
Yeah, my pop has a long history of like supporting my antics, and like never like smothering my flames, and like taking this like childhood curiosity and excitement. Like I even remember, so I ended up enrolling in high school online because I wanted to travel, I wanted to work on my companies, I wanted to like have this freedom. But I also decided that I wanted to be very popular. So I had this conundrum of like, how do I become exceptionally popular and then also not go to school? And so my answer was to throw massive parties. And so like a normal kid party is like, okay, 20, 30 kids are gonna show up. My thesis was like, okay, I have disposable income. I can buy pallets of Red Bull. I can buy a tent. I can buy like lasers and DJ equipment. I can set up a website.
How much did you have at this point? How much money were you pulling in at this age?
Oh, I mean, nothing like too crazy. I mean, like maybe I had like a few $100,000, something like that.
So you buy pallets, you buy Red Bull.
Yeah, I buy all
cases.
this
And
stuff.
you're like 14, and you got. a
Yeah, I
couple
mean, I
hundred.
was older for this party. I was like maybe 16, 17. We hired the local police department for security because my thesis is that the police can't shut you down if the police are there. So there were literally like thousands of kids. The traffic around our small town was bumper to bumper. And the funniest story is part of it is that Martha Stewart lives in Katona, and she couldn't get to her house because the roads were shut down because of this kid's party. And so the cops obviously, the real cops get called, but the cops are already there, so that creates all types of confusion. My pop is down at the street talking with the police.
Your pops is okay with this.
Well, my pop again was very supportive of this like entrepreneurial spirit. Like, and it was all very safe, to be clear. Like, no alcohol, student IDs. Like, we had the police like seizing anything, so it was like supposed to be like this like safe environment. Obviously, it was like crazy. Yeah. And Martha Stewart pulled up and is like, "Hey, like, you guys need to shut down this party." It was a relatively reasonable request. The news gets to me that Martha Stewart's trying to shut down our party. And so I get on the mic, and I'm like, "Hey, everybody!" And like, there are thousands of kids. There's a tent. Like, there's a little clip of this on my Instagram, and I'm like, "Martha Stewart's trying to shut down this party," and one kid yells, "You know what I have to say to Martha Stewart?" Martha Stewart, and the whole town starts chanting like "F Martha Stewart." It was the funniest thing. But yeah, my pop is like incredible. Not just like ethically, and he's obviously brilliant, but just he has always provided an environment for me to reach as far as I could in whatever I wanted to do, and I think that was pretty special.
Why do you think that is? He was a lawyer, went to school, he actually went to college, and then here comes you, the hellhound.
It's interesting, and I recommend this to actually a lot of folks. When you're young, you have a certain idea of your parents, and their stories and secrets are stories and secrets until you get to our age. And if you actually go back and start to ask them like some of these questions, like, "Hey, did you ever party?" Or like, "What was your, like, did you ever get into shenanigans or the rest?" They would not have told you at 17, 18, but they'll definitely tell you in like your 30s, like when it like the statute of limitations is passed. And so it was funny, like I recently found out that like my pop like loved to skip school in high school. Like, and that's not something your parents would tell you, but like he would love to skip school, go surfing. He was a whitewater rafting guide while also going to law school.
Wow.
So it's like to half of the population, he was seen as this like very well-to-do lawyer, and the other half, he was like some bum like whitewater rafting guide. And so I do think that like, does the apple fall far from the tree? Like I don't know. All I know is that he probably saw a lot of himself in me, and like just didn't want to shut that down.
Yeah, and so when you were fairly young, your father was working on the Madoff case. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
How was that?
Yeah, my pop has worked on some of the largest class actions in history. And so what does that mean to the listener? Basically, he is hired by the people who lost their money. So he represented the folks who lost their money in Madoff. He ended up recovering it, and recovering means basically that you're this like, you're basically like hunting down tens of millions of, hundreds of millions of dollars, like people's yachts and houses and just all this stolen money and bringing it back. He recently did the FTX case, which was cool because that was, when I saw all of that happening, I'm like, "Dad, like you need to help these customers." And he obviously like hadn't seen it or been exposed to like the whole crypto world before. No. They ended up recovering like 150% of what was originally lost, which was like crazy. So basically just seizing everyone's assets.
You were the reason he did the FTX case?
I mean, I don't want to take like any type of credit for his accomplishments, but I certainly was very aggressive about it. And then like I was like, "Hey, like here are these here are these potential clients, I guess."
I think interesting switch, and one that we noted down, is you skipped, I think, 200 days of school.
Yes.
Touch a bit more on that. You didn't not only did you go to online high school, you essentially didn't go to high school at all for a large amount of time.
Yeah, it's true.
What were you doing?
It's hilarious. Yeah, so my history of schooling is very unique. School has always been very easy for me. I'm super fortunate in that. So I always just felt like it was never a challenge. Like it was just a complete waste of time. Like I wasn't learning anything. If there was something to learn, it would take me an hour instead of a year. And so I basically like didn't go to middle school. I skipped like hundreds of days. And my pop, you know, like God bless him, negotiated with the school that I would that whatever score I got on the Regents, which was like the state test in New York, would be my grade for the year. And I ended up scoring like phenomenally well. Like I just read the textbook like the day before the test, and then I was like off to the races. But yeah, I very much did not do a lot of school. I was just like, I was at home. I was building companies. I was, it was just an interesting period. But yeah, I was very fortunate.
What inspired you to build some of those early companies? Like I'd imagine you're growing up in this town of like 2,000 people. How are you like, I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars online. How are you perceived? What is your sister thinking? How is that all playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that my sister thought it was odd at all. My pop didn't think it was odd. I didn't talk about it with anyone local. Like my friend group were kids on the internet, and like the kids that I knew in person, I didn't talk about any of that stuff with.
Why was that?
Because it was like totally unrelatable. Like no one was doing any of that stuff. They were all just kids. Like you're not going to talk to them about like, hey, I filed like my taxes. Like,
how do you get into it then? More often than not, people are sort of a function of their environment, especially when very young. Why do you do this stuff?
The thing that, I broke it down to, it literally just had to have been that like I watched my father provide and I wanted to like work like that. I think like that has to be the root of it.
Was money driving you, or was it the function of just working hard?
What fuels me is pride. Like I have to make like those around me proud. Like, so it's like I have to make my employees proud. I have to make my shareholders proud. I have to create a work product that makes me proud. And so it's certainly like not about money. If it was about money, then I probably would not be working. So it's mostly just about like doing a good job in this world.
Is there anything you're not proud about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very self-critical. Like I think I'm very far from perfect in so many ways, but I definitely try to always conduct myself in a great way, to be like kind towards others. Yeah, but I always think that like things can be better. Yeah, and I think it's probably like through that lens, like you can be like, oh, you're almost too harsh on yourself, but yeah, I'm definitely very self-critical.
Do you journal in any sort, meditate?
Yeah, I mean, most of my reflections are very like in my head, like sort of like crafting like how I handled a certain situation and then how I want to be going forward. And also, I mean, it's not, to be clear, like who I am today is not just a byproduct of like myself. Like I was fortunate that with Coder, I started that company at 17, 18. I very quickly had a board of like some of the best investors and operators in the world. And so it's like, I got that opportunity to be crafted by them. Or like when I was younger, like business ethics, core ethics, like those were shaped by my father. So I think that, like candidly speaking, if you took like my personality type and like didn't have such a supportive environment with so many great people, like I could have gone a completely different direction. And so I'm also like very grateful for that.
Can you tell the first tax story?
Yeah. So I remember, so my pop was like, how much money are you actually like making with this like little company? And I like showed him. He's like, cool, like you have to pay taxes. And so he took me into the city to meet with his accountant, a firm called Citron Cooperman, and he had a direct friendship with one of the best individuals in the world, a guy named Niles, who started the firm. And they asked me to bring in all of the transactions for this company, but they were all microtransactions, and they were all anonymous users. So I walk in with this binder of 1,000 pages of microtransactions, and it's Piggy Magoo bought $15 of coins. It's a total mess. And I remember that my professional services fees, so the cost of the accounting firm, literally wiped out any profit that we had, everything. And so I learned a lesson I think most founders learn, which is lawyers and accountants can suck a lot of the money out of the equation.
Can you talk about the traveling you did when you did high school online? Where were you going? Why did you want to travel?
Yeah, so I mean, I love adventure. And I also, when I was very young, I internalized this idea that death was going to happen, which is a pretty morbid idea for I was 8 or 9 when I really thought about it. And so I have always wanted to make the most out of every single day. I feel so grateful to wake up. I feel so grateful to have the people around me in my life. And I feel I just never want to waste this gift. And so when it comes to travel and adventure, I think there's so much of the world to be seen. So many people to meet, and new lessons that you can glean, and sights and animals and sounds and smells. And so I was constantly traveling. Internationally, spent a few months in Korea, a bunch of other places. Most of my travel is around the U.S., so I've been to all 50 states, and just the adventures and the people that you meet and the chaos that happens along there.
Do tell.
Stand off with the black bear.
Yeah. So when I was in Korea, my pop was working this large case, and so I was let loose in Seoul. And I had a translator that was provided for me from the company that my pop was working for. And the first day we do all the touristy stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's, we'll put that to bed. I'm like, can we get a limo? And also we need girls.
You're what, 17?
Yeah, exactly. And so the next day he rolls up in this limo. And there's one girl who is another person from the translator company. It's the funniest thing. And I get in, and he's like, okay, what do we want to do? And I'm like, let's go to an amusement park. Again, this is just classic kid in a new place. And so we start driving to this old broken down museum park, or amusement park, it's out of a movie. And I notice that everyone is clapping as we go by. And I'm like, why is everyone clapping? And the guy's like, oh, the limo here is typically used when someone gets married. Oh, no. And so they think that you and I guess, are married, or some it's just the funniest thing. But yeah, it was all, I think it was just the idea that I was self-aware. I was super grateful to be alive, and I just wanted to have a really fun time while also being productive in the world. And yeah, it was like a video game basically.
You didn't get lonely at all?
No, I mean I've never really had a problem with being alone or feeling lonely. I think that there are certainly times as a founder where you feel very alone. The whole weight of the company and its success is obviously on your shoulders all the time. But I think I've had that weight from such a young age. You just get used to it.
What's the hardest thing you've been through?
I'd say when I was, my early childhood was definitely not picturesque. And I think that ultimately that prepared me very well for the rest of my life. And that's also where the ideas of mortality and this gratefulness I think came from just waking up every day so happy for what I have. And so yeah, as I've gone through life, obviously building building companies was difficult. I ended up breaking my back while also like building Coder. That was like hard, but again, like having been armed with like harder things earlier made it seem like not a big deal.
And good perspective.
Yeah, totally.
Nice.
I know you've done a lot of crazy stuff, especially relative to the average person as a kid. Do you want to unpack maybe the craziest one?
Yeah, I mean, I have done a lot of fun stuff. I used to race Formula cars when I was a kid, Formula Mazda, Formula 4, so not F1, but the same kind of car, just lower power, and not as expensive. I had a bunch of crazy adventures there, racing all across the country. Lots of crashes and crazy moments. Cars flying over my head at like Sonoma Raceway. I used to race down in Baja, trophy trucks down in Baja. I have so many wild stories from there. I remember once two cool stories. I remember once I was driving through the desert at night and my leg started to hurt. You're doing like 100 miles an hour in the dust, middle of nowhere. And it starts to hurt and it's hurting and I feel like there's something crazy happening with it. So I like pull the car off. My co-driver's like, what's going on? I look down and I had this like basically stick that had like at some point during the race like gone like into my leg, like deep into my leg. I remember like pulling it out. I guess like in the adrenaline of the race, like I didn't know it was in there. And so that was wild. I remember one time I was racing down in Mexico and there was a forest fire. And I saw this guy waving his hands. Like during Baja, there are hundreds of thousands of spectators. But this was a forest fire. Like we were in a forest fire. And I'm like, everyone's driving by him. And I'm like, this is not a spectator. Like this guy needs help. Like we're in a fire. And so I like pull off the racetrack. He runs over. And the car only has 2 seats. So there's like nowhere to sit, right? It's not like a normal car. And so I say like, get on the hood and like hold on.
Oh my God.
And so he's grabbing around the roll bar and we're driving out of this forest fire. And it's maybe like 10, 15 miles until we reach another set of spectators and we drop them off and then we continue the race. We ended up finishing 3rd, which was crazy given that slowdown. But then there was a news article with a photo of him holding on to the car. And he was like this farmer or something who got lost. And it was like he was out there for like 3 days or something crazy. And we like rescued him. And there's like the photo of him with the flames holding on to the car. It's pretty nuts.
Wow.
But yeah, racing down in Baja. Baja is a very difficult race.
When did you start doing that?
I think my first off-road race, I was like 16 maybe.
Better
Something
question
like
is
that.
why?
Oh, why?
Yeah.
I love cars. I love anything related to engineering. There's a lot of parallels in building a startup with like racing. Like you have competitiveness, you have team dynamics, you have a product, aka your race car, and then you have like your ability to execute. Then you have a bunch of data. Like I just found that whole world super fascinating, and then also like the idea of risk. Like I've always had a very high risk tolerance, and I think that probably also drew me to it.
You're clearly very competitive. What compels you to stop your race and help somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely prioritize someone's life over.
Given that you were unsure, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've had so much happen to me in my life. Like, I'm super, super fortunate, but I also think that like I've had a lot of like very unfortunate things as well. And like I wake up every day just like so in love with this world, so in love with the people. Like I think that like, I mean, I feel like it's hard not to believe in God, like when you like look out and you see like the ocean and like everything else. And so like part of like my mission statement is like massive good. Like that is like my personal mission statement is massive good. And like, I never want to like walk by someone who needs help. Like I never want to leave someone on like the side of the road. And so like I'm always going to prioritize that over the idea of like winning the race, which will probably candidly be like my downfall as like a founder and as a person, is that like I always tell my family like I'm probably going to die early because I'm going to like see someone who needs help, and like that's just how I'm going to go out.
So you moved to Austin, right? You're what, 18? You moved with your co-founders. How do you meet your co-founders?
Yeah, so my co-founders in Coder, we met when we were kids. Kyle was a plugin engineer and Amar was a system administrator. And so that's what I mean when I say that like my friends were like these internet kids. You know, there was a small collection of like these young people building things, and there were two of them. And so that's how we met, and we built all types of random online businesses along the way.
And why'd you pick Austin?
Really could not afford the rent in like New York City from like an office perspective. And San Francisco was like very much the same. And so we ended up in Austin. I'd love to say it was like super thoughtful, but it was very much like Austin seems good and we can afford it.
I know at the time, you know, you I think as soon as you've raised, you're what, like 18 or 19, and you have to recruit people like double your age, right? How is that?
So we lied about our age at Coder. I remember we all bought, it was my idea, so like it wasn't the boy, like we bought these like button downs because I'm like, we need to look professional, obviously. And so we had this like rusty tin shack as our first office. We didn't even have like trash cans. So like I think the photo online of it has like the trash outside of the office. And we had like this rusty Coder sign that we had set up. And yeah, basically like it was telling people our vision and hiding our age. And to date, most people say like, oh, I thought you were 28, 29, as opposed to like 17, 18. We probably didn't show our age, or people didn't know how young we were until like it was in like the fundraise articles.
And you mentioned that the raise was a total grind. Do you want to unpack that and sort of how you went from cold emailing to getting to Uncapped and Redpoint?
Yeah. So when running Coder, we didn't know anybody. Like we didn't know any VCs. We didn't know. We just didn't know anyone. And so we had this idea that software development was going to move to the cloud. We had a product that we believed in, but it needed funding. Like it was too hard of an idea to bootstrap, at least for us. And so I just started like cold emailing VCs. The first VC that I talked to was Google Ventures, which is pretty epic. And it's because our Google Cloud bill was exploding, and our sales rep was kind enough to like facilitate the connection, which I think is a really interesting thing, that Google Ventures actually probably gets like a little bit of a nice funnel like through people's Google Cloud spend. We totally screwed that pitch up. And, oh my God, it was like the worst pitch ever. And somehow I was fortunate to be able to get in front of like a lot of pretty notable firms, just through like grinding and like convincing and doing whatever. And then I screwed up again like 90% of the pitches. When I met Redpoint, our partner Alex Bard, he is just like the most phenomenal person. He's been on my board since I was like 19. So he was on the board of Coder and he's also on the board of Wander. And like he is also every good attribute I have is like from him or like the other like wonderful people in my life. But yeah, those early rounds were really tough. I mean, we had like a month of runway, and I remember like laying in bed, stressed out of my mind, this like 18, 19-year-old kid. Like I had like employees and like people that I was providing for, and like those people weren't just kids, they were like adults with families and mortgages. And that's still something that like I think about. Like I think one of the reasons why like I'm fortunate to work with such incredible people is that they know that I am thinking about them not just as a employee, but as a person, and a person who has expenses and a family and goals. And like, you know, to the question about weight, like I've had that weight on my shoulder since I was like 18.
How does that show up in real life in terms of understanding that they're human? Are you paying them more cash? Are you just being kinder to them? And do most CEOs, in your opinion, not do those things?
I think it's about like emotional intelligence. So like when you have a young founder, and the young founder goes and hires this, call it like mid-30s, year-old individual who has a wife and maybe their first child, that young founder can either internalize what that person is going through, the thought process, can they have a meeting at 9 p.m. or not, or they can like be totally ignorant to it, which, to be clear, like most young founders I think are. And so like that was something that I always tried to focus on, was like putting myself in the shoes of the people around me and understanding like what it was that they were going through, what they needed, and how I could be like as good of a CEO as possible given their circumstance. To be clear, like the quality of founder and CEO that I am now versus over a decade ago is probably very, very different. But it's certainly something that I always tried for, is just like this level of like empathy and understanding.
I think you attributed a lot of your growth to reading books, right? And do you have any books that stand out?
Right behind us.
Yeah. The book that's helped me the most, honestly, I think it's like a pretty corny answer, but I would probably say the Bible. Like, I was raised Christian. I fell away from it, I think like a lot of kids do. And then I came back to it more from like an interest in trying to understand like the history, like these real like historical events. And I think that like this idea of like, yeah, like who do you want to be? How do you want to act in this world? I think is like a really big question. And so I'd say that that's probably the one that's changed my life the most.
How do you get the nickname The Shovel?
That's hilarious. So what you're referring to is a nickname that I developed inside of Coder, where no matter what the task was, no matter how terrible it was, that I would get it done.
Did you self-assume that role, or people assigned it to you?
I definitely self-assumed it. I'm like, I'm perfectly happy. Like I have no ego, and I would never no ego about what I'm willing to do or not. And I have no, I would never ask someone to do something I'm unwilling to do. Like I think if you have something you're unwilling to do and you ask someone else to do it, then that's like not the best dynamic, especially as like a leader. And I also didn't want people to work on things that I thought really sucked, which is a hilarious idea. And so yeah, I would work on like the hardest problems. Like I remember when we launched, like I was like, I will be our 24/7 customer support. And so it was like those first days, like I was up literally 24 hours a day, like answering support messages and emails and like, you know, doing whatever it took to get it done.
What about the idea of delegation? Say somebody is significantly better than you at something. Would you say still do it? Say somebody who's really good at customer support. Why take pride in doing it yourself rather than say, hey, they can do it?
What I'm describing is not like if you were to ask for startup advice. I don't want anyone to think that this is startup advice, by the way, because we're talking about honestly my mistakes, not like, you know, in my life, not the right way to do it. The correct way now, like, would be, I'm going to launch this product. I know that I'm going to have like customer issues, and I'm going to need customer support, and I'm going to hire a small customer support team and structure them across the globe in a way that the time zones provide 24/7 support. Like a very obvious idea. But when you're, you know, 18, it's like I'm launching this product and now I have a bunch of like customer problems and I need to answer them. So I think that like a lot of things in building a company are not intuitive, and you learn by doing, or you learn by others. Like those are the only two ways. And I happen to just be a founder that has a lot of scar tissue, having been building for so long.
You were given advice from Alec Goodall. He said there'd be times when, multiple times in your company, it's going to feel like it's going to fail. There are some examples, I guess, to pull that through line and touch on Coder more. Yeah,
so Alec Goodall was an entrepreneur that I met very early on. He was the first VC-backed founder that I had ever met. To give you an idea of like how bad our network was, my pop knew someone who happened to hear about this internet entrepreneur. Like that's like the levels of like, you know, that we had to go through versus like in Silicon Valley, it's like everyone knows somebody. Yeah. And I remember when I was pitching Alec Goodall what we were building at Coder, he may not even remember this. He's like, "Are you sure that you want to do this?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "It will be like miserable. Like building a company is miserable." And what he saw was this, you know, 17, 18-year-old kid who was like about to go down a life path that is like not very easy. And I was like, of course, like I'm not going to do anything else. And then he gave me the piece of advice, or just the context, that there will be 2 to 3 times when building your company that it feels like you are going to die, like that the company is going to die, that you are going to fail. And I remember as those events happened in Coder, the first one being that we had a month of runway. You know, there were a few others that I don't want to, you know, share on the pod. I remember counting them off in my head, and I remember hitting like 3, and I'm like, wait, we're only 4 years in. Like, is there going to be more than 3? And so yeah, to all the founders out there who are building companies, I'd say that is something to keep in mind, and you should find solace in, is the idea that like there are going to be multiple times where it feels like you're going to fail, and that's okay, and you should just keep going.
Do you still view yourself as a shovel?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so at Wander, I'm a solo founder, which means that like, you know, there's even on those hardest problems, it's like it's just me at the end of the line, and yeah, at the end of the day, like, you do what needs to get done. My grandpa had a great saying, which is "half to is a great master," and it's like if half to, you know, exists, then you got to get it done.
Can you touch a bit on Founders Fund and Peter Thiel when he first invested? You spoke to him in that story.
Yeah. So I was introduced to Peter through an individual named Greg Kennedy. Greg Kennedy was one of the most amazing men. He died recently. Just like, he's such an incredible guy. He introduced me to Peter, and Peter called my phone. So I was like, again, very young. And I remember I was so nervous talking to him that I probably like wasn't coherent at all. Thankfully, I think that he was, he probably doesn't even remember this. I mean, I'm sure this was just like a, 15-minute phone call for him. But thankfully, I think that he must have been used to it. Like, these young founders who have no idea what's going on. Like, we probably just seem like a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off running around. He ended up connecting me with the team at Founders Fund, who ended up writing a small check into that round. Founders Fund ended up referring me to the Thiel Fellowship. I wasn't going to apply because I just didn't feel like the program was for me. Like, I didn't feel like I needed the money. I knew I wasn't going to college, obviously. I was building Coder at the time. But they encouraged me to, go out and do the interviews, and ultimately ended up being a part of it.
I think it was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point in time, I didn't know anyone like me other than my 2 co-founders, which I was very, very fortunate for. And so the idea that there were 20 other kids out there that had of course you'd throw a party, of course you'd go racing, like, of course you'd do all these things, it made you just feel like not as, to your earlier question, like alone as an idea.
You stepped down in 21. Why?
So yeah, it's a great question. I'd started Coder when I was pretty young. I think that like my young adult brain totally formed around that company. And like ultimately deciding to step away, having those conversations with your co-founders and thinking about like what's best for the company, what's best for the relationship, what's best for that next stage is super hard and super challenging and complicated. But ultimately I felt like it was the best thing for the company. The company, I'd grown it all the way through growth stage, all the way through Series B. We had some pretty massive customers and a pretty clear line of sight, and I just felt like my time was up as a CEO. I don't view being a CEO as a right. Like, I think a lot of founders view it as like, I started the company and so it's my right to be the CEO. Again, my goal is to always do like whatever I think is like best. And if it means I'm the best leader, then that's great. If not, then like I don't want to like be holding on. And so yeah, I mean, I was very young. Even through that journey, I stepped down when I was 23, which is crazy. So.
And I guess simultaneously you're driving an F4, right? How does that come about? How do you have time for that?
Yeah.
There's a million stories that we have to get into.
Yeah, so I used to race Formula Mazda. I finished second at Nationals, and then I raced a season in Formula 4. I only did 2 or 3 races in the U.S. Formula 4 series before I ended up breaking my back at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Yeah. Which, like, I remember that back break, and then Coder. I remember being in my back brace at Coder's office, setting up the desks, and like. Literally like still like on like hydrocodone to like manage the pain, but I was so focused and motivated on like I need to get this office set up so that we can like keep building this company. I never thought about racing as like my career. Like I was never this like idealistic kid that was like, oh, I'm going to be a professional race car driver. I viewed it more as like, I am building a company and that is going to be what I do. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to like have very, very cool story. I do think that the one thing that they don't advertise to kids is like how dangerous it is. And yeah, like I think it's like that accident caused me to now like have like chronic pain for the rest of my life. Like I wake up every day, chronic pain. It's like this battle that's always happening in the background. And again, I think it just like makes you really grateful. Like there's two ways to look at it. You can wake up like depressed, or you can wake up like very thankful to be able to walk and move and live and all that sort of good stuff.
We've been told by a few people, we back-channeled you in a variety of manners and tried to go as deep as possible. They said to ask you about your family and what you think of family and how much it means to you. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I feel very fortunate that my family, again, has always been supportive and has always been there in times where like it would be very easy to abandon, very easy to like kick someone while they're down. And so I don't think that I would be here without them. I mean, to be clear, like I don't think that I'd be anywhere near where I am without like everyone in my life. I'm fully convinced that I am like straight just lucky. Like that's the only like explanation that I have. And so yeah, I think that like there are some people who aren't so lucky to have like a very supportive father or a loving sister or the rest. And so I think that's where like finding family outside of your bloodline is super important as well. But yeah, I think having a support ecosystem is critical.
And your sister is now the head of ops at Wander, right?
Yeah.
Previously did marketing at Coder for you, and how's that working with her?
So yeah, my sister works at the company. She originally, when I started Coder, worked at Coder as well. She is brilliant. She went to Notre Dame and Johns Hopkins, and could definitely have had a more successful career than working for me. When you first start a company, I think a lot of people know this, like you literally grab whoever's nearest to you to help with whatever the task is. Like if you have a friend, you grab your friend. If you have a brother or a sister, you grab them. Whoever is able to handle that circumstance. I just happened to luck out that like my pop is a world-renowned, brilliant lawyer, and my sister is like a very, very thoughtful and talented like operational leader. To be clear, like I have lots of family that unfortunately is not as useful. Otherwise, I probably would have grabbed them, in along the way. But yeah, I lucked out in that sense.
To skip ahead a bit closer to present day, you founded this company called Wander. Talk a bit about what it is. It's a verticalized way to tackle this rent industry.
Yeah, I guess you have to tell the Colorado rental story and sort of how you actually came with the idea.
Yeah, totally. So after I stepped down from Coder, I rented this cabin out in Colorado to get away, think about the world. And the whole experience was just a little bit broken. Like kind of your classic bad vacation rental experience. Like it didn't look like the photos, the beds were uncomfortable, the internet was bad. And that's where the idea for Wander came from. It was this idea that like you had this absolutely massive travel industry where you had gross levels of inconsistency, very bad customer support. It was just all very disjointed, fragmented. And my thought process was, my idea was there the opportunity to verticalize? The idea for Wander is insane. Like it is, we are going to create a brand that resonates with consumers. We're going to create a distribution platform that rivals Airbnb, Wander.com, the Wander app. And then underneath that, we're going to create this entire operating system of all of the types of tooling that these homeowners need to operate the homes to a very consistent and quality standard. Mm-hmm. If you can imagine like a pre-seed founder pitching that to investors, like they would probably stop you at like, how are you even going to get the brand? Like what are you even going to call this company? Let alone like, oh, you're going to build a booking engine, an experience that's as good as Airbnb, let alone you're going to build like agentic property management software and systems. And oh, you're going to start by owning the properties and then you're going to add third-party inventory over time. Like that seems insane. I was very fortunate that Redpoint, who had worked with me before at Coder, knew what I was capable of and believed in me. And so they led our pre-seed. Our first investor was Josh. Josh and Adam Gill kind of compete for who was the first investor. Their checks were very close together.
Who was the first?
I think we went back and checked. I think it was Josh. I think Josh was like 10 minutes
Josh.
before.
Josh for the win.
But yeah, Wander was a crazy idea. It still is a crazy idea. I mean, I remember when we launched, we had 3 locations, and the believers were like, "This is so exciting," and the haters were like, "There's only 3 locations." And now we'll have like well over 1,000 by end of month, and we've been growing 20-30% month over month since. But
Do you think it applies to your principle of starting with a bad idea and sort of working it until it's good?
yeah, I mean, I think that Wander was different in that I wanted something I could work on for the rest of my life, and I wanted something that like I believed in and like was basically like my soul, but like in the world, and made people happy and like provided value. And like I think that that has always been the driver of the output. Like the output, I always want to be that family has that like beautiful experience. Like you have that time with your kids, or you have like that great trip with your girlfriends. Like you have these memories that you're gonna have all the way until the end of your life. And like that was the output. That was the piece that I was creating towards. I just happened to have built all of this stuff to get to that one happy customer. But now we have literally like, thousands and thousands and thousands of customers every month who have been feeding back and saying like, hey, like we had the greatest trip. Thank you so much for what you've built. I think that's like what it's all about. It's like everything that I have built is in service of like just providing a little bit more happiness for folks.
Why did you choose to go it alone as opposed to having co-founders? I know you had a founding team, but
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, like we have an excellent team. So I am very much not alone. In fact, the company, when you start a company, it's like you are the company until like maybe seed stage. After that, the company instantly becomes bigger than you. For whatever reason, like as humans, we like to look at a company and then we pick the CEO as like this like representation of it. But the reality is like the company is so much bigger than I am at this point, and it's like thanks to literally hundreds of like remarkable people. So I do not take credit for anything good. Anything bad, I will take credit for. Like if you have a bad experience, it's my fault. Like tell me and I will fix it. But all of the good things that exist in Wander were built by others. I think that regarding like having co-founders or not having co-founders, I think it just depends on the company and the individual. To be clear, building as a solo founder is harder, for sure. And so you just need to be ready for that. And I don't think that it's something that I would normally recommend.
Do you think a bit of the through line working in now the travel industry is because you traveled so much during high school and you saw so much of the world and maybe had a good, bad experience, etc.
Yeah,
Now you
totally.
want to fix it.
Yeah, I think that when you look at my LinkedIn, you see like enterprise developer tool founder and then consumer travel founder. And like somehow both companies ended up working. If you know me, then it's very obvious. It's like, this is someone who is passionate about seeing the world, is passionate about others, and like it makes a lot more sense.
when did you get your tattoo?
The Wander tattoo.
Yeah.
As soon as the logo was done.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I always joked. So people were always trying to change the Coder logo. Like we came up with the logo, and then I'm like, changing the logo is very annoying. Like don't change the logo. I like the logo. And so when I worked on the Wander logo, and it was something that like I loved, and obviously the symbolism of like, we have this beautiful planet, we're meant to explore it. Like that's why it's on a spinner, is like this idea that you can like spin and look, in this childhood excitement. And so as soon as the logo was done, I was with my chief of staff, Matt, and I'm like, let's get it. Let's go to the tattoo parlor. We're like out in the middle of nowhere, like working on one of the houses. And so yeah, pulled in, got the tattoo. But again, it is because like Wander is my forever company. Like I think it needs to exist.
How much do you pay for the domain?
For the domain, I don't think I'm actually allowed to disclose that,
Ooh.
so you'll be upset.
Give us a vague range.
So it was half stock and half cash. And then I set up the agreement to be over a certain length of time, so we didn't have like that upfront burden. The equity is worth far more than the cash. Let's just say that.
Cool. That's funny. When you first started, had you actually tested people wanted the product? You sort of made a wait list and you put up on Twitter, made a large amount of money in the first month. How'd you go about that? Why'd you do that?
Yeah, so I think that wait lists are super dangerous for startups because it is like the lowest form of friction. It's good to have some signal that what you're building is wanted by others, but in reality, someone putting their email on a wait list is far lower friction than whatever it is that you're building for however much it costs. And so what I wanted to do was not just have a wait list, but also have a proof point that people were willing to pay for what we were going to offer into the world. And so we started this thing called the founding membership, where basically you paid $100. You would get $100 in credits when we launched. So you would actually it's not like the money would eviscerate. And then you also get like a Wander hoodie. And then we would always treat you with love and respect as we grew. And so that group of users, if you are a Wander founding member, just know that I truly love you, because you were the only source of motivation that I had, building the early stages. These people want what we do.
How much are these robes right here, Alex wearing?
How much is the robe?
Yeah, are they expensive?
I think they're $100, something like that.
You mentioned you wanted to host a party with all the founding members.
I do.
Have you done that yet?
Yeah, well, so it actually may happen somewhat soon. I don't want to spoil anything. But yes, if you're a founding member, you may end up with an invite to something at some point later this year.
What about investors?
Yeah, I mean, investors will certainly be allowed to come.
There we go. I love it. And what does your day-to-day look like now? What do you envision Wander being in the next 10, 20 years? In one sense, you can be the travel platform. Do you think you can coexist with Airbnb or just obliterate them?
Yeah, so I don't view it as us versus them at all. Because at the end of the day, it's about the customer and just delivering value. And I think to be clear, lots of customers get value from them. So I don't view it as us versus them in that sense. The vision statement of Wander is to build the infrastructure to experience the world. I think that we live on a beautiful planet, and I think that people who go on trips come back with something new and a different perspective, and maybe they made new connections or whatever else. And so that's what I want to build. I want to make it so that the world is easier and better to explore.
Cool.
Have you had any moments with Wander where you feel like it's gonna fail?
Totally.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, nothing is all cupcakes and rainbows, and anyone who tries to pretend that it is it's like watching a Formula 1 race and being oh, no one's gonna get hurt. It's things are very hard. I mean, you have to remember. So when we first started building Wander rather, we owned the first initial assets on balance sheet, and I had this crazy idea that we would go as a literal 12-person company and secure a $100 million credit facility from Credit Suisse, so a globally important bank, to go and buy these first few assets. Think about how ridiculous of an idea that is. The scale, the level of sophistication, financial sophistication, all these things that you need to have to basically satisfy the requirements of such a large bank. And we did it. We pulled it off. I have the deal tombstone on my desk.
Why do you think you did? Why did they say okay to you?
I think that they saw that I wasn't wrong, that the economics and the institutionalization of the asset class were very possible. What ended up happening at that same time was you had the fastest rise of interest rates in history, from the ZIRP era to 5-6% in the span of months. And that ended up collapsing a 200-300-year-old bank, overnight.
Yeah.
And so imagine John Andrew, who is building Wander and just got this $100 million facility, is now faced with the collapse of this bank that's supposed to be a core piece of the bank. And again, we migrated through that. We posted continuous year-over-year growth. We continued to make our customers happy. I think that nothing is easy in building a company. Sometimes you just gotta grind it out, and but you want to do it with a smile. It's about pain tolerance. I have a very high pain tolerance, and then I will have that pain tolerance and smile while I go through it.
I guess in regards to mitigating the pain you faced, or I guess going about things a better way, Alec has a close friend named Julian Weiser, who wanted to ask you a bit of a unique question in terms of how you actually tackle that, and maybe you can touch on that a bit more.
Hedging.
I'm sorry.
Hedging.
Hedging progress.
Yes, hedging progress.
Yeah. So my belief, I have a few different like core principles when it comes to building companies. But one of the core ideas is that in the early days, there are lots of different directions that you can go in, and you're not quite sure which one is best. And there's this classic mantra of like focus. But in reality, if you focus on something that's bad, then you're focused on what's going to kill you. So it's actually like not the best idea. You want to be focused on something that's working. And so the question is like in the early days of a startup, how do you ensure that you make progress at all times, knowing that a certain number of your efforts are going to fail? And so that's where the idea of hedging progress kicks in, is you take your 3 to 4 best possibilities and you figure out if there's a way to run them in parallel, then do so. And so what ends up happening is like, I'll use an example of like, from like a marketing perspective. Like you pick the 3-4 channels that you think are gonna work, you run them in parallel, one of them works, but guess what? Now at least you ended that month with one working marketing channel as opposed to none if you had taken the odds of just focusing on one. Then you focus on that one, to be clear, like so you do focus in, but there's all types of examples of hedging progress, from hiring to fundraising to company building, A/B testing. I mean, there's so many different pieces, but I think it's very important.
Outside of Wander, is there anything tangible that you want? Maybe to learn, maybe something tangible, another globe.
I think about my life backwards a lot. In fact, it's actually like how I live my life. I spend more time thinking about the future than I think like enjoying the present, which is not a good thing. I wouldn't recommend it.
How does that play out?
It's a bit
How do I
hypocritical.
play out, like my life?
Yes.
I am buried on the coast of Northern California under a tree with a nice little rock that says my name on it, and hopefully some people who love me come and visit.
I know you backed the longevity company. Are you not aspiring to live forever?
Yeah, I mean, I love this world and I love my life, and I want to enjoy each and every day as long as I can. I don't think that I'm going to live forever. I think it's more about like living out my days as like in a healthy, like having my health for as long as possible. But no, I'm very aware that I'm definitely like here temporarily.
What do you want then? I guess touching back on the previous question.
I want to leave the world like a better place. Like I want people. I want to be a net positive.
Do you want anything tangible?
Like physical
Physical,
items.
yeah. You've explored a lot. Is there something you still want to explore, or something you're yearning to do?
I'd say like I mean, I'm still young and like I don't have a family yet, so it's a pretty wholesome answer.
Yeah.
Probably a family at some point. Yeah.
Nice, cool.